All right.
Good afternoon. It is 5:07 on September 4th, 2024. And this District of Columbia State Board of Education working session is now called to order. This month's working session is being held in person at the Marion S. Berry Junior Building. However, in-person attendance is limited to State Board members and guests. The working session is also being streamed live on the State Board's YouTube page for members of the public to attend. I would also like to take the opportunity to welcome our new, which I had a great time swearing in representatives to the very first State Board meeting. Welcome, you guys. We are excited to have our members. I will not crucify you guys' name. I'll just say Ryan and Miss Lynn and Mr. Barnes and okay. Serve alongside us and lead our student advisory committee this year. All right, the roll will now be called to determine the presence of a quorum. Executive Director Butler, please call the roll.
Representative Barnes.
Here.
Representative Lynn.
Here.
Representative Mayor.
Here.
Representative King.
Here.
Representative Best.
Present.
Representative Chang. Representative Goulet.
Here.
Representative Henderson. Representative O'Leary.
Here.
Representative Reed. Representative Williams. Representative Patterson.
Present.
President Thompson.
Present.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice President, you have a vote.
Thank you so much, Director. A quorum has been determined and the State Board will now proceed with the meeting. Again, welcome to our September working session. At this time, I will ask President Thompson if she has a leadership report to share with the members. President Thompson.
Good evening, members. I'm sorry I'm not with you all in person, especially our newest student members. I am attending an early learning fellowship with the Hunt Institute. Paul Kine is actually the other DC fellow here. And so regrettably, I'm missing the working session and I'm going to miss our literacy event tomorrow, which should be phenomenal. A couple of things I just want to make sure are on people's radar. First, in addition to just the warm welcome and the swearing-ins for our newest members, I want to make sure that everyone knows we were able to resurrect the form for the office leads evaluation. I did send a separate email to members with the instructions. The staff will also receive a separate email. The form will be open through September 13th. I do want to thank Director Butler for resurrecting the form, as well as the SOP working group for making sure this process is laid out. The new ombudsman, Kimberly Humphrey, will not be reviewed as part of this cycle given her more recent tenure. But please know this is an anonymized process. We are looking forward to compiling everyone's feedback. And this will be the first time that the ED and the student advocate will go through this process. So that email is in your inboxes. I know during the admin report, we'll talk a little bit about the reappointment of the student advocate. I do want to note this is not, as of right now, contingent on that. We are that recommendation. We do have a timeline and have to make that. If people do have specific feedback regarding that appointment, I do welcome that as well, either through this process or directly to the admin committee. Second, student advisory applications. I do want to thank everyone who shared out the SAC applications and anyone who might be listening who applied. This is actually the first year we've ever reopened applications, and we did receive an overwhelming response. Members, in case you all are wondering, you do not need to review the applications for the SAC since we do accept any students who are interested. I'm flagging this because it was at top of mind for me, and I was like, oh, wait, what do I need to do? And the answer is nothing. Now, if you would like to see the applications or just curious about a breakdown of who applied, Darren Fleischer, Dr. Darren Fleischer on our staff is in charge of that process. Please just let us know. Last, I want to flag a couple of upcoming meetings. I know August was a lighter meeting month, which I welcomed, and I'm sure others welcomed as well. We do have an upcoming meeting with the chairman alongside the ombudsman and student advocate. We are working to schedule the SBOE council breakfast at the chairman's recommendation. That looks like it'll be sometime in January. We'll let you know if that changes when we have new members sworn in. I don't believe that there is anything. I don't believe that there is anything diligent. I'm sorry, that anything pressing for this fall. Let me know if you have any feedback around if that is not true. We will also be getting a date for the truancy attendance crosswalk release. We have scheduled a meeting with Dr. Farabee later this month. Members, those are not necessarily standing meetings, but we did want to reach out to the chancellor about a couple specific things around the beginning of school. And each member should have received outreach from interim superintendent Mitchell about scheduling a one-on-one. I know several members have already taken advantage of this time already. If you're having difficulty scheduling or have any thoughts about the other leadership meetings mentioned, please reach out to VP Patterson or myself. Those really are the biggest things that members need to know about. We also have a couple of things that are surprises, which you'll see some emails around. We can't announce yet, but that'll be good too. But that concludes my leadership report. I'm open to any questions.
Are there any questions? President Thompson? Seeing head shake no, President Thompson, so I don't think we have any questions. So thank you, President Thompson. I'm pleased to turn to our, yes, ma'am? Was there another comment?
No, I was saying, okay, thanks for letting me attend virtually. I'm excited that we have new capabilities, not just for this meeting, but also for our public meeting. So looking forward to listening in.
Okay, thank you so much, President. I am pleased to turn to our Executive Director, Denise Butler, for her report.
Well, there is no executive director report since our last working session in August. Again, a lot of our staff is out of town and recuperating. So there's actually nothing happening sort of on the agency front in the last 3 weeks. We will have a report.
Thank you, Mr. Director. And thank you for the time just to rest and relax for a few minutes. I understand why there may be few reports this evening, okay, because everybody got a little time off. So. But for the students, there will be a lot the next working meeting, okay? So don't think this is the norm, okay? There will be a lot to discuss and other people here. All right, thank you, Director. Do members have any questions? I'm sure there was a report. We don't have it right now. We will now move to our public meeting panel discussion. Tonight we'll discuss on potential panels topics for our October public meeting, followed by a vote. Every Monday, our policy fellow emails out the roundup. The first item in the email is the 2024 public meeting panel topics. As we advance, we will discuss and vote on the panel topics suggested at each working session. If no topics have been proposed in the tracker, the floor will be open for suggestions. If no suggestions are given, there is a vote not to have a panel for that month. There is currently one proposed topic in the tracker. Representative Henderson from Ward 5 proposed the topic of graduation requirements. Representative Henderson, would you like to elaborate on your suggestions?
Sure, thank you. So the idea is just in anticipation of OSCE looking at changes in graduation requirements. We would have a panel to inform members about some of the issues that we know are going to come up in that discussion. It would be similar to the topics that Kathleen Coughlin has prepared memos on. So those would be likely topics for experts to at the panel. We're also open to suggestions for panelists for particular graduation requirement topics that members would like to learn more about.
Are there any suggestions or questions from members?
Have you thought about panelists?
We don't have any specific people. We're open to suggestions or.
Because I think that it would be helpful for us as an urban district to make sure that we invite panelists from that would be similar to ours. Sometimes with the panelists for big ideas, we get people from all over the country. But I think that we need to sort of localize the concept, because we've had a lot of discussion already about graduation requirements and what we might add or take away. So I think if we could find out maybe from other districts how they've been successful or unsuccessful about changing the old time 130-year-old graduation requirements that we found in NASB to be sort of normal for systems.
So I'm trying to understand, so people from other jurisdictions who have gone through this process, okay,
That are similar to our jurisdiction.
similar.
Not to exclude universities and things like that, but just to have something that talks about us. Especially with our changing student population in the city.
Okay, if there's other questions from our student representative?
So two questions. One, would the panelists be able to attend virtually or would they have to be in person?
We now have the capability for virtual panelists. We will be trying that at the coming working session, so get excited for that. It is happening
All right.
for the first time ever.
Okay,
And then, I guess to suggest something, I am part of and now run a youth program where we have youth, it's youth in government, if any of you guys heard of it, it's, anyways, teenagers, high schoolers bring bills and they debate them, and one of the bills last year was to abolish community service hours regarding graduation. So would that go into panelist or public hearing / testimony, and then should I get in contact?
You could, if you would suggest, make that suggestion to me via email, and then we'll.
Awesome.
Representative Meyer,
I've done that.
huh? You good? Okay. Were there other questions on this subject, this potential panel? Thank you, Representatives. Are there any other suggestions for a panel? I'm seeing none for October. Yes,
Just for the new student representatives, just to let you know that we've been working with us on the graduation requirements for a couple of months now. So this isn't something that, it's not anything that's in stone, but it's something that we've been talking about. So your input will be gratefully accepted, but it's not that we're just starting with nothing. They've got to come back to us with what, they've already given us a proposal. They've got to come back to us and tell us where they are. Then so we'll sort of work at the right time, I guess, in October. So that all the input that we can, because we won't, at least we haven't lately, we will not allow something like this to change until we've had our input and work with OSCE, just as we did with the social studies standards and with the financial literacy standards and the menstrual health standards and the SEL standards that we just worked on in the last 2 or 3 years.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
thank you so much, Representative O'Leary. With there being no other suggestions for topics, we will now take a vote on graduation requirements for our October public meeting. Our panel, Director Buster, can you please call the roll?
Yes, I can. So we're just looking for a yes, or no response. Representative Barnes,
Yes.
Representative Lynn,
Yes.
Representative Mayor,
Yes.
Representative King,
Yes.
Representative Best.
Yes.
Representative Boulay.
Aye.
Representative Henderson.
Yes.
Representative O'Leary.
Yes.
Representative Williams.
Yes.
Vice President Patterson.
Yes.
President Thompson.
Yes.
All right, our panel for the October public meeting will be on graduation requirements. Representative Henderson, we will look forward to working with you. Bring that panel to life. Be on the lookout for more information for Deputy Director of Families.
Right. So now we will move on to discussing kindergarten teacher literacy event. Tomorrow, the state board, along with partners including DC Public Schools, the Washington Teachers Union, DC Charter Alliance are hosting a back-to-school literacy mixer for kindergarten teachers. We will now discuss the final updates and details for this event.
Okay, so in your folders, you have a one page with the agenda for the event and a rundown, a run-up show. You will see that Vice President Patterson will be kicking us off with a welcome, followed by comments and remarks from Councilmember Pinto and purpose and vision from Representative Pan regarding the literacy work. We have been in deep partnership engagement with several of our education partners here in the district who will be joining us to share remarks. Chancellor Fairby, President Paul Lyons from the Washington Teachers Union, Assistant Superintendent Ross from OSSI, and Ms. Travers, the Senior Director of School Support and Data, Program Data, from the DC Charter Alliance will be sharing remarks focused on their commitment to collaboration and feedback around the literacy recommendations and the literacy legislation that was passed earlier this spring. And so they'll be doing that, but probably even more impressive, there will be a jazz band, there will be food, there will be drinks. It's really an opportunity for you all to come out and network and really have kindergarten teachers who will be the first set of individuals to participate in the training and legislation requirements around literacy training, to really hear firsthand from the people who help track that training and provide feedback to them. Kathleen Coughlin on our team has been working, has produced an amazing one pager that also has a QR code to a feedback survey, so that as the attendees learn more about the literacy recommendations, that link will stay open to gather their feedback. It will be open the night of, it will be open in the future, and we've committed to sharing that feedback with all of our partners in the education ecosystem, particularly OSSI, as they're going to be charged to help and roll out those trainings for the literacy recommendations and so forth and so on. We are excited. We're also giving away books to the teachers. We want to thank the Washington Teachers Union for providing over 3,000 books for kindergarten teachers. So we will have set up that will be delivered to the space so that teachers can leave with books in hand. We will also have a representative from our special education hub set up to share information with any teachers there who would like to learn more about their services. And on the back, again, it's just a rundown, a run-up show. Bunch of basic logistics, but we just wanted to share it with you all to let you all know. So if you are interested in coming, you have not already registered, please let us know so that we can get you the registration link. I do not think we can have student members because there is alcohol. And I did not realize that until now, because when we planned this event, we did not have student members on in yet. I will follow up, I will see what we can do about that. There may have to be some unprecedented situation. Yeah, when we planned, because we started planning this back in the summer, and honestly, it is true that they did not, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing, and I'm so very sorry. But we will follow up to see, maybe we can designate on your name tag that you're under 21, so they can serve you alcohol. Because you don't want to get in trouble with the law. That's not what I'm saying. I'm assuming that is where Ryan and Anna were raising their hands.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, but we will get your registration link and we will figure out a way to denote that.
So I need to
Protect all
register.
of ourselves.
Just like the question.
Yes, go ahead.
And so I need, okay, I was just wondering, because never mind, the thought process was, Alistair asked me if you wanted me to join, and then I said yes, and then I was like, do I register again, or would that be like a repeat register?
Well, he has not registered you, so yes, you should register.
Awesome.
So anyway, it will be at the MLK Library on the rooftop on the fifth floor.
Mhm.
And so we're just very thankful for all of our partners who joined planning calls, who helped us advertise. Right now, we have over 80 kindergarten teachers across the district, both DCPS and charter LEAs who have registered. We are sending reminders tonight, and Alistair is sending a personal reminder to all of them tomorrow morning. To make sure that for them to come. So the doors open at 4. There's a short program from 5 to 5:30. But otherwise, there's networking, there are name tags, and just want to give a special shout out to Cheyenne Hunter, who is our admin and operations fellow, who has done a large bulk of that planning and execution alongside.
Because my principals that I have seen since the start of school, they've all talked to their kindergarten teachers to come, and a lot of the principals are coming too. But just remind them, if you haven't talked to them lately about it tomorrow, I think it's gonna be a fabulous event. And, I know little leftover books can go.
Well, the books will go back to the WTU, so they're not our books.
Well,
They are their
I'll
books.
talk to Jackie about it.
Yes. Not taking ownership of any leftover books, we don't have any space to store them.
That's not what I was saying. I've got schools and.
That need them.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Director Butler. Next on the agenda are committee reports. Our committees did not meet in August, so I'm not expecting any type of reports. But we wanted to provide space for updates and discussion. Members will also be given time to share about any external committees they attended in August. I know on the list starts with me and with administrator. I do not have any additional comment or meetings that I attended in the month of August. I was happy to have a Valentine and everything like that. So I don't have any comment to that. Do you guys have no questions? So with that being said, we're going to turn to college careers and life readiness from representative from Ward 5 and just.
I have no additional comments.
So you're following suit. I can appreciate that. Then we'll move to educator excellence with representative from Ward 4, O'Leary. Oh, wait, hold on, wait.
Sorry. We did meet with, the deputy mayor, Pine, to follow up on the artificial intelligence conversation. He was extremely open, to, creating a space for all of our local educational, agencies to come together. We are reaching back out to him, and he's going to take the lead on reaching out to all the different LEAs and agencies to collaborate on this initiative. So more information to come.
Thank you, Representative Betts. Any other comments? Maybe. All right, I'll move over to educator excellence, Ward 4 Representative O'Leary.
Pass.
Okay, so Representative O'Leary has passed, and I'm assuming you don't want to come back. That's just a pass in general, right? Okay, so thank you. Now we'll move to student experience and engagement from Representative Williams.
Sure, so, one thing, that we've been working on as we move forward, that I'll be sending around, that Darren and I just actually got like less than an hour ago, is we have a 2024 District of Columbia absenteeism survey. So essentially, we know that students have been missing a lot of school during COVID and after COVID, so we're trying to get better information about why, what could help, and get, suggestions around that, so just know that that'll be coming around to kind of provide feedback, but I am looking at a full draft of our survey questions, so and looks great. And I want to give a particular shout out to Darren for all the communication that he's been doing with members, with the outside provider, and just going back and forth. So it's really got us to a place where we have something concrete and actionable. So keep the lookout on that, and then please give feedback when we're sending it around.
Thank you, Representative. Were there any questions? Representative Williams.
No, I have a comment.
Comment, yes,
Darren,
ma'am.
as Representative Williams was speaking, I just had an idea about a group that we can include. It'd be cool to send it to DYRS, the survey when it's developed. Because I'm thinking we're doing a survey and we issue around schools. It's gonna be for the kids who are in schools. So we need to think about how we can tap into populations that may not be in school all the time, if that makes sense. And it just came up to me when you were talking, so sorry I didn't tell you that.
No, absolutely. So part of it is a sampling plan, so I can forward that, that recommendation to the vendor. It is going at, it's targeting the top 50 schools, but I'm sure there'll be a creative way to
Mhm.
loop them in.
Yeah.
And that's similar to Dan's, recommendation as well.
Okay.
To work with different organizations to get that out.
And Darren, what were the other partner organizations we were thinking of that aren't just school-based? Or we're going, you might not know off the top of your head, but.
So, my God, I don't know why I'm blanking on it right now.
But to the point,
Yeah.
like, I was just saying that there are a number of other agencies that we're thinking of like how best to reach students. So like the point was well taken, and we'll take that into account.
All right, thank you, Representative Williams. I know we discussed this earlier, but are there any external committee updates or reports that you want to share that anyone attended? I've not seen any.
I will, I got an email earlier this week just to continue serving, just so we know, the task force for, the Everyday Pounds Task Force is continuing this year through the Deputy Mayor of Education's office. This has been a priority work of our committee, so, colleague Anna, you'll be like joining us on that work, and, I might be joining the steering committee as well for that work, to kind of serve as an access point within schools. But also like how to, best reach students to improve getting students to school.
All right, thank you. There's no other comments. We will now move on to our new business. I want to ask members if they have any additional items of new business to add to the following list. We'll be discussing discussions on cell phones in schools, SR 24-18 advocating for enhanced school nurse staffing and support in DC schools, SR 24-19 reappointing Dan Davis as chief student advocate, SR 24-20 appointing student representative to the ad hoc committees, SR 24-21 extending the education and civil rights working group, CR 24-7 honoring the late Mary Levy, and CR 24-8 congratulating May Best on her retirement. Was there anything else that anyone wanted to add to this list of new business for discussion?
You want to, what do you think?
The meeting.
Yeah, so one thing to add would be the idea of, a state, a new bill on, state governance, like revisiting the governance thing. It was come out of committee, so we could put that at the end, idea. State board of government.
Okay, it looks like state government, looks, wait, that, like, I was so, got it, state board government.
State board of forward, I think is the
Mhm.
word.
Authority.
Sorry,
Discussion.
I'll fill you in.
All right. Now that we've had one addition. Were there any others? To add to the business? All right, let's jump into plethora of things that we have to discuss this evening, okay? It'll be a lively discussion, okay? So we're gonna start with our representative from Ward 4, Larry, the discussion on cell phones in schools. You wanna engage this, sir?
I think it's, imperative that we address this, cell phones in the schools. Having them, not be part of the everyday operation of the school. We have schools in the city, that have the phones locked up all day long. And we have schools in the city where kids have their phones all the time in the classroom. I think, my personal conviction is that we shouldn't have cell phones in the classroom at all. And I can speak to that as a teacher. I didn't allow phones in my classroom, and it worked really well. They had, I don't know where the phones were when they were outside my classroom, but some schools don't. I know I have a school, Whittier Elementary, where the students bring their phones, leave them in a box in the office. And at the end of school, they bring the box out and all the students pick up their phones. And they don't have any kind of problem with taking the wrong phones or anything else. But I know that what I've been studying and reading about and hearing about is there are a lot of systems now that are locking up the phones in this particular kind of a bag that has and they get out after, I don't know if any of you have that in your school, do you?
So currently what we do now is it's kind of similar, but we don't get a tag no more. What you'll do is you'll come in and enter prior to entering, you have to power off your phone. They'll give you a number. You have to keep the number on you at all times. If you lose it, then you basically lost your phone. So you turn it, get it, and then at the end of the day, around like I say 3:30, you go back up there. And it's like you gotta stand in the line and wait. And then hand it.
So they have control over your phone during the school.
Yeah.
And that's basically what I'm talking about. And we haven't really talked about that. And the system has problems we have with our systems, the way they are now with all these LEAs, is they all have different rules for everything. And I think that we need to work on, if we talk about governance or whatever, of any kind, that there needs to be a universal kind of a rule for cell phone usage. I guess I just wanted to bring that up.
I would love to hear from someone more of the student representatives as I see interest.
Yeah, I think that this is definitely this is a really hot topic at School Without Walls right now, and I think that while it would be a flat out lie to say that phones aren't an issue in classrooms, I think that the purpose that phones are serving for students in classrooms is a symptom of a bigger problem. We have started putting our phones in these little phone holders, and students aren't on their phones, but students who are going to be distracted and on their phones are going to be distracted even if their phones aren't in the holders. So I think that is a Band-Aid solution. Anything like the keys and the numbers and all of that are Band-Aid solutions. And I think some of them, especially the more intricate, technologically advanced ones especially, would be a necessary expansion of resources for a problem that it wouldn't even solve.
Just a semi-rebuttal. My problem with it is bullying and spreading information throughout the schools and disrupting the schools by everyone on their phones talking to each other and talking about what they're going to do to somebody or something like that. Besides the fact that for a lot of students, it's not an educational process.
I mean, I think that bullying is going to happen on phones outside of the classroom. No matter what, not having your phone for an hour, every other hour, or whatever, that's not going to make a difference.
Why wouldn't you have your phone, not have your
Or
phone?
even all day, if people are cyberbullying others, it's going to happen in the morning. then you don't have your phone, then it's gonna happen in the afternoon too. Like that would be a band-aid solution.
I will shortly excuse myself to the bathroom, but, there's like a few points, one, I'm fine, my school doesn't have phones and it works fine, and I mean, we're normal, we don't feel like a urge to, like, I swear to God, if I classmates are listening to this, I'm fine with the ban, personally, I don't really like, if you guys think that's great, that's great. My problem is, at our school, we have these Chromebooks, and these Chromebooks, great, wow, you can log into them, you can access the internet. No, you can't, you need two-factor authentication. How do you? Here's the problem, our phones are banned. We're not allowed to have our phones, but, so we can't use our Chromebooks without pulling out our phone. So there needs to be some sort of provision for, if there's two-factor authentication, there needs to, like, it makes zero sense, like, I don't know why they do this, so that's my point, they just need a, yeah, okay.
So, I'm a fan on this one. There's more like technology and information, in this phone than the computers that's in demand today, right? And so like, we should be like actually preparing our students for how they can utilize this for good. Because technology is gonna continue to be a significant part of this world. And so like, instead of banning it, we need to make sure that we're preparing students to use them appropriately. There are tools and devices out there that can block specific apps. So you can, there's literally like, one I was just researching the other day, that when you can like tap it and it blocks certain apps. So I think like, if we think about like the communication during school times, like during specific apps, like there are tools that can actually ban that without banning the actual technology that's gonna help our students in the future. Now, I do understand that bullying is something that takes place. And, once again, I think that's also a Band-Aid. I think we need to go back to talking about like our SELs. We need to make sure that there are appropriate consequences for actions that our students have and things of that nature. So me personally, I would be against it. And that doesn't even talk about like the other risks that are involved when it comes to student safety as well. And so for me personally, that's something that I would be against, but I'd be open for a conversation around it.
I'm definitely open for the conversation. As a educator, I get how irritating cell phones can be. I started, yesterday was the first class at Georgetown, and there was some student, like, every time I looked over at her, I could see the top of her head. And I'm just like, so then for me, I was like, well, okay, I need to make sure I do some things to, get the individual off the phone and like, engage in class. It made me shift my teaching style to more hands-on, and then we were up at the board, and there's little students never touched chalk before. That was amazing to hear. So that was kind of my personal kind of take as the adult, like I get why it's annoying, why it seems like someone's not paying attention, missing information, and maybe that individual was, maybe not, I don't know. But a more, I guess, direct for DC students, when I did the little bit of a tour to Anacostia and Blue, was it last summer? No, last summer. Before school ended, students were asking for the use of their cell phones. And I gave them the same reason. I was like, okay, y'all have to give me your reasons, because if I go tell the adults that you should have your cell phones, they're gonna look at me like I'm crazy. Some of the issues that came up were safety, where students were getting information related to what happened in the neighborhood prior to them leaving from their parents, et cetera. And they would not necessarily have gotten that information if it wasn't texted to them on the phone. So that was something that we need to talk about and consider as we're considering the banning of cell phones. And then how to use the cell phones. Students were asking for integrating the cell phones into curriculum. So how can we use them in the classroom? Because I mean, we do that all the time, try to quickly find an article while we're in these meetings. We're not all attending, like it's part of habit. I'm not talking about you, Robert. So that's the second point. The students are asking for an integration of the cell phones into, and he's gonna catch me not paying attention to, like, or using my phone in a meeting. But that was the second point. Students have asked, like, how can you integrate phones into curriculum? The last piece was a personal moment where I remember being a young educator at St. Clair of Greater Washington, which is a special education public charter school that does functional life skills for children with disabilities who they are going to get a certificate, they're not going to get a diploma. And one of the most heartbreaking moments and a feeling that I felt like I failed as an educator was I encountered two of my students at the Harris Teeter that has now gone on in Ward 6, I believe. And we did community-based instruction, like almost every day that group would go out. And they were literally in Harris Teeter. There was a number of issues going on where I was like, why are you in Harris Teeter with no money? So that was not one issue. But the bigger issue, I was like, well, you know, here's my contact information. My students did not know how to program my number into the phone. So I had to show them how to do that. To retrieve the phone, to retrieve the number to call me back, I had to tell them like, just find the letter C. And then on the other side, one student did call me for help for like job placement and did not know how to use the phone. He just said, this is so-and-so, you know, like no, you know, back and forth conversation. So that gave me a completely different perspective because we were literally spending so much time teaching them like, you know, don't use your phone, be off your phone, put it over here. And we're supposed to be teaching them functional life skills, but here was a true situation that like if they were in Harris Teeter and they needed, you know, help, they would not have even known how to use that phone. So I also wanted you to think about like our special education component or our students, our special education component, not just special education component, but also as we're preparing our youth to leave school of, can they do a phone interview? Can they call and have an effective conversation? Do they know how to save, you know, information? So there's a whole lot of other elements to that, the conversation I want us to consider outside of just, no, you can't have a phone in the classroom, even though it's highly irritating to the adults. Sorry.
Representative Barnes.
And I also want to propose a question as to why are we eager to use our phones, specifically within the classroom? What is it that is prompting us to want to sit up here and get on our phone? Is it the teaching staff? Is it the teacher themselves? Is it like what particularly could it be? Most times it's, I'm not gonna lie, school is boring now. So that's coming from a student, you know, school is boring now. And if we don't have that's why we have to, you know, get back into the SEL habit of, you know, adapting to different ways to teach. Not specifically, you know, up on the wall, having us write down stuff down, because slowly, if you notice it or not, slowly it's less engaging. It's less, you know, actual participation between students and educators, which instantly prompts us, you know what, there's nothing to do, so I'm gonna get on my phone. And back to your bullying standpoint, I want to bring back an old habit that's not really, you know, normal now, and that's parenting. I'm sorry. As far as having, I'm sorry.
This discussion right now.
Having control of what your child does on that certain device, that's still an option. That's still, you're still able to have parental control. You're still able to see what your child is doing. Maybe not see everything your child is doing, but you want to make sure that, and now we don't see that much. Because now we see younger people getting on social media doing things that they should not be doing. They shouldn't even be on the app itself. You know what I'm saying? So it should really be more of a supervision on these cell phones. And like you said, within the classroom specifically, also teachers have a responsibility as well to ensure that they're not being used. Collect them while they're doing the class period and probably give it back to them in transition. And what we did last year at third grade, I don't know why they switched it because it was good. They had a lockbox. And as you enter into the classroom, you give up your phone, they lock it in the box and they put a label on your phone whose it is. Then 5 minutes before you leave class, you get your phone back, and they do that in each class. And you had it luck. And this is even more so for socializing as well. Like she said, we're in a digital era where you don't like communicating in person that much, for real. So what you'll do is you'll communicate online. And as it's slowly happening, we're literally evolving into this online presence to where this is how we communicate with people. This is how we have our, you know, conversations. And I believe we shouldn't ban it. It should be limited, not banned.
If I could go in for a second, and so I really support what you're saying generally in this. I would love to hear from our teachers union to see where they are with it too. The one thing that would concern me is if we're trying to force our teachers to have to discipline kids who don't want to go to the phones. I think there's gotta be a clear and consistent policy on what's acceptable. Because it shouldn't be up to the teacher to have to set the rules, and then if the teacher doesn't get backup from the administration or backup from the city, where they're gonna feel like they just can't control the classroom essentially. So I'd like to hear to what extent this is a real problem for our teachers, because I could see it being really distracting you know, and Representative Barnes mentioned that, the teacher, having to, I think teach to the style of the kids, but I think also we want to look the other way too. Is sometimes things aren't exciting, but it's a good character building exercise for our students to build their attention span and to learn to sit through things that aren't necessarily maybe as entertaining as they could be, but that are really important that they get those concepts down. So I think it does go both ways there. And I would like to hear from our teachers union for one. I'd like to hear from our principals on the issue you raised about discipline, to see how bad the bullying is throughout the day. I really do see a value of the phones being able to come in and out. You know, the bullying, I kind of agree with, I think where you are, Representative Mayor, on this. That may occur, outside of school. It's not necessarily gonna be limited to the in-school thing. So I don't know the degree that the phones being available at lunch periods or before and after school is the cause of the bullying versus something that would occur anyway. So I'd just be interested to kind of, if we want to do, bring some experts into this, I think it'd be really beneficial. It's an interesting topic. I know it's a hot topic and I don't really have a strong opinion.
Oh, yeah, I'm thankful for you mentioning that, Representative Goulet, about that, the power struggle, because I was worried about spending so much time in the morning or beginning of the day or beginning of class trying to acquire phones, versus the instructional time. So it'll be interesting to hear what individuals say related to that. Something that I would love our students definitely in regards to voice. I know you led an amazing campaign related to environmental. She has on lockdown with like 150 students almost doing testimonies.
All of that.
So I would love, no, bring it back. Bring it back, to hear from students. Yeah, yeah. It was, yeah, and it kept growing. We came with 20
It was
and I was
literally
like,
only 55. And I'm going to say, we got 150. It was like 55.
Over the course of time. You never know the things. They would tell us both, Dr. Reed, go right ahead.
definitely, I would like to see maybe our student reps mount a campaign related to getting student feedback. Because that's gonna be imperative to hear their voices. Again, like I'm trying to give the voice from the few students at Anacostia and Blue that I spoke to, but it'll be amazing if you all can, mount up and get some kind of campaign going so that students can give solutions, talk about the barriers, what's going on, why they feel they need these phones, and even provide the solutions for themselves if they go, which the parameters be, because sometimes it's easier for individuals to follow some sort of protocol when they have given feedback and insight into that protocol. So this could be your task number one.
If you want me to bring 200 more students to testify and I can.
Can you?
I think Beth would do.
Yeah.
Wait, well, no, I
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry. So two other things, I think this is general. One thing that phones often symbolize for like students and young people is autonomy. And I think that because, thank you for the nod. I think that because schools are supposed to be like a safe place where students can like truly be themselves and whatnot, taking away that form of autonomy would make people like put up their walls a little more. And I think generally that would be unproductive. And as for bringing up parents, thank you for doing that. I think that one thing that I have not heard any schools do, to my knowledge at least, is real communication with families and parents and students by administration about phones. So if we're thinking of instituting some type of like citywide policy or recommendation about that, I think that having a administrative like communication with parents and families would be one of my priorities for that, just so that there's like a standard of how it's discussed throughout the city.
Representative Beth.
Use my notes sometimes, but you all know. But I think that there comes a time in every industry, right, where we have to adapt. And I think that that inflection point happens underneath our noses without us really realizing that it's happening. I think this is one of those times. In education, I think that we're often slow to adapt. And so, I was always taught as a special educator to use high interest materials to help increase our students' learning or desire to learn. As Khalid said, school's boring now. So you now have this high interest tool right here at your hands that everybody wants to be on. Why not incorporate it into your educational product, into your teaching style? I had a kid who hated math, but loved to play Madden. So for homework, love football. So for homework, I say, go play Madden. And he learned it 7 times tables that way. And so it's the same way. It's like, how do you incorporate these things into what you're doing? So I think that us saying that we want to ban cell phones is us saying that we don't want to we don't want to adapt to the times. And I think that, like Khalid said, maybe there's some type of restrictions, but I don't know if a ban is the right move, especially if we're literally right now working with OSSI to develop, to improve our tech. We're saying that we want to make sure that all of our kids are tech proficient by the time they graduate, right? And so if we're saying that, we can't talk about banning tech. It's just, I don't know, it just doesn't make as much sense to me. So, that's all.
Representative Wood.
Sure. I appreciate the point. I want to respond to a couple points. I think in terms of the piece of education is slow to change, absolutely right. However, what the positive change is limiting distractions for students so that they can learn. And most schools will have computer cards. Most schools will allow for students to bring their own computers. I don't think by saying no phones, we're saying we're anti-tech. I think we're saying we're anti-distraction, we're anti-text messaging, we're anti, like, you have something that's more important than like what I'm teaching right now. And that's not to say that teachers can't adapt, but like, I've been But to the point that, Khalid was making, like, what is the point? The point is to create a focused learning environment. And we all know, yes, we get on our phones when we're bored or when we want to do something else, but like that creates a lot of lost time. I've seen students lose a lot of time and it's really hurt outcomes. And the progressive districts that are moving in the direction and the more affluent districts are the ones who are taking a bolder step on self-learning, not anti-tech, right? But saying, we're gonna be anti-distraction. And that's, I think, the message that we need to cut through the noise with this broader conversation.
Representative Henderson.
Yeah, so the schools are already dealing with this, obviously,
Yeah.
and are making decisions and making policies, and I'd be curious just to know what these schools are doing so far. I know that DCPS does not have a uniform policy related to this, so we've kind of got experiment going on in the district, and you can see there's information to be gleaned, and we could maybe learn something about who's doing what and why.
I can appreciate, I'm kind of waiting to chime in, but I can appreciate what Representative Henderson is saying, because I work for an LEA that takes phones every single morning. They're locked up until the end of the day. Also, that same school has had an incident where there was a shooting and school went on lockdown. We had parents wanting to contact their children because they're concerned, because now their children is in a school, they heard about lockdown, they're actually showing up at the school and they're concerned about that. So I've lived through a few situations. And to Representative Henderson's point, we need to talk to some schools that are in various levels of how they control phones, if they take them totally away. We grab them at the LEA I work at the morning, but it does create a long line. As they come into school, I mean, that line, they're not getting in, as you said, Dr. Reed, for some time to get to their first class and everything like that, because the line is out the door. And trying to, give their phone over and get put in the proper place so that when they come at the end of the day, it's in the proper place to retrieve it. So it would be incumbent on us as we continue this discussion, Representative Valeri, to go to schools at various levels of what they do and get their kind of feedback and get some type of data on what does that mean for like violence and other things, because we do know, and being a person who works with violent interrupters and stuff, that phones are used to coordinate fights and other things. And I've seen it done, so we say we want to be able to, as you said, Representative Best, to kind of block certain apps. And I'm supportive of that because they're used on a military person, like intelligence. I have literally seen students move fights from place to place because they have their phones. And they'll say, okay, a fight's gonna happen here, let's move it to here because too many people know about it. And all the students would show up But none of the people who can break up a fight can do anything about it. So I think it's incumbent on us to kind of look at if we're going to have some type of policy that we're going to propose that's going to be, as Virginia did, like a statewide policy or anything like that, then we need to go into schools, kind of find out and back it up with data, to make sure we're making a most informed decision, based on a number of things and input from numerous people, as you said, from top to bottom.
Sorry,
Yes.
absolute last thing. I think we also have to think about the cost of this too. So like, cause it's not just, we say we ban it and it's banned. It's like, all right, well, we need lockers, or, the cases and then you're mandating it for every school. So now for the smaller charters who may not have a significant budget, now they're, having to budget that in as well. So then where does the money
And the
come from?
question is, can you mandate it for charters because they have autonomy?
Exactly.
So there's a question there.
All right, cool, thanks.
I think there's just, I'm gonna take two more questions, then we're gonna be done. I'm gonna to him and, Representative O'Leary, I'll let you have the last one. So Representative Jane?
Okay, so first, first, something also to follow up on is the teachers often, a lot of teachers are highly agreeable and nice, so that such that they need a system to blame, such that my school actually threatened to fire any teacher that didn't take away phones on site. Like if a student has their phone in their back pocket, the teacher could get fired. My administration last year was highly controversial, but it was also very effective. Because in a way, it was effective because teachers could be like, it's not me, don't blame me, blame the administrators, and that worked. The administration was blamed. But that's something to follow up on, is like, if you wanted to ban it, how like would you fire teachers that do, how heavy of a hand would you do that in? Like, you probably, like, you understand. Second, to follow up on Representative Best and Representative Patterson, my school actually implemented this like Say Something program where you can basically go online and you fill out this anonymous tip form, goes to a nonprofit organization, the Sandy Hook Promise or something, and then they work with the school to break up a fight, basically, to report cyberbullying, et cetera, which could be useful. So then there's that cost trade. And also, like Representative Best was saying that, you want to make sure you don't spend so much money. If you already have that investment, maybe it's better to go that way than to ban it. That's something to keep in mind. Second, I know Representative Reed was talking about the life skills. I honestly think that most kids are just like using Snapchat and stuff. They're not like I'm a nerd and I literally go through like the accessibility settings and I go through all the things and color filters, etc. But I think the more practical thing is like last year I was doing a presentation on DC digital literacy, and the DC government, it says on the website, so I'm assuming it's true. The DC government partners with Tech Together DC, and I have a screenshot in one of my slides, and it shows that the 9th at the senior center, the 15th at another senior center, and at 1 p.m. the public library, blah blah blah. They have it was like almost once a week they had these meetings at senior centers, libraries, where people can go and learn about digital literacy, learn how to use a computer, and maybe you could bring that into schools. I think that would be much more productive than having them figure that out on themselves, because I highly doubt that they're going to be doing work things. And finally, I apologize for this, almost filibuster. For follow up on what Representative Williams was saying, I agree. I think that your distraction, your attention is literally a product. It's an industry. I think that we can't, it's not to say that we can't trust children. We can't trust high schoolers, students to use their phones right, but there are people literally doing science. They're paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this science, to figure out how to make their phones as addicting as possible. And so it's not to say that we're blaming the person, but we can make the assumption that they will always stray towards the more easy, like TikTok. They'll always go to TikTok rather than scroll through LinkedIn. And that concludes my rant. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Representative O'Leary, we're gonna let you close out the discussion.
Whose idea was it? Because this has been unbelievable. Because for those of you who are just coming on the board, we're an advisory board, all right? We can't pass a law, we can't do anything. All we can do is make this information available out in the ether and push those people that can do that to do that, all right? Because all of these recommendations from all sides of cell phones, good, bad, indifferent, or whatever, should not be done by us. This should be the government or DCPS or the leaders of the schools and things like that. Because it's very simple for us as parents to, if you don't do your work in your school, I'm gonna take your phone away kind of thing. All right, but this has just been a fabulous conversation. Now the work begins. All right, because the next step that I hope will happen is that we'll have a panel with some people from different places, just like I was talking about the other panel, to bring up positive, and then anyone can testify at our public meeting about this. And that's what so now the revolution is beginning. Let's see what happens.
Thank you, Representative O'Leary, for bringing this subject, this lively discussion for us. I agree with you wholeheartedly. That's where I was going to go. That this does sound like a panel topic that we should have in this term. So I look forward to getting that on the calendar at some point and going forward. With that being said, after that lively discussion, we're going to turn to SR 24-18, advocating for enhanced school nurse staffing and support in DC schools. And Representative
Dr. Patterson,
yes.
may I chime in about the cell phones?
I did not hear, we kind of moved on, but can you make that quick if you're going to chime in, sir? Representative.
Yes. I just two pieces. Want to make sure that we're not thinking about this as a binary, right? It's not only that we ban or allow, right? There are a bunch of other ways that we could structure policies, whether that's tiered by grade, classroom specific or school specific, right? Giving the agency to the teacher or to the principal to decide geographically within a school, having a tech-free zone, right? And or thinking about what kinds of partial restrictions, work opting in or opting out, right? Emergency only policies. There are a bunch of other options besides blanket, we allow or we ban. And to help facilitate that, I think about what Dr. O'Leary was saying around, what is our role to potentially help facilitate this? And I like the idea of us being able to learn more about how diverse stakeholders in DC are thinking about this, whether that's parents, teachers, in addition to bringing in experts. And at this point, we have seen other states implement policies, and I do think we can always learn from other jurisdictions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Chang. Representative Butler.
Representative?
I'm sorry, Director Butler.
I was gonna say that, just based on discussion that the members had, that before the county, it might be helpful to send this to the student experience and engagement committee.
Thank you for the suggestion. Correct. You always do the right process. So that's what we'll do. Representative O'Leary. Okay. Thank you. Thanks everyone again.
It will be referred to.
Wait, okay, wait.
Referred to your committee.
Okay. Right. So thank you.
Wow, thank you, everybody. It's gonna be tough to top that last discussion, but I'll do my best to. So, for years, we've been really trying to make it an effort of getting 40-hour week school nurse coverage. It's something I've been working on the council side. I was fortunate enough to be committee director of the Committee of Health. And recently, we've had a lot more advocacy. We had a lot of public testimony at our meeting, really concerned about the downward spiral we're seeing here in the city in terms of nurse coverage. And I think what really alarms me more than ever before on this is now with this new clustering model that we see is a lot of the intangible enjoyment of this profession is now disappearing. And that's that a school nurse can get to know their students, they can have a home base, they can build those relationships, that trust. And with that disappearing, I think we're going to start to see more and more school nurses leave the profession because because now they're basically having to travel around almost on call versus having that ability to have a site of students they know and they get to serve. So I'm really concerned about it. I want to really thank Representative Williams. We went through his committee on this, for his advocacy, his suggestions on the resolution. I want to thank Karuna for your work on this. Certainly on the resolution, I appreciate that a lot, and for Darren for his work. I've submitted, we've got the draft resolution in here. I submitted just some technical revisions to it on SharePoint just moments ago, so everyone has those now. Nothing really substantive. I did want to just flag. Do you have?
It's on the screen.
Oh, wow, look at this. So we can go through.
I'm emailing it to
All right,
members
so-
as well.
So let's, if we can just go through here, these are technical here, up until there's one that I wanted to highlight. So can we go down to, can I have control? Just down to the one that I added here, which is just what I was discussing. So this was not in the original draft, but just, I think emphasizing the nurses, because they talked, if the witnesses spoke about this, the loss of the personal connection with the students, I think is really important, because at the elementary school level, like the little kids like to trust their nurse. They know when this is nurse so-and-so, if I'm sick, he or she helps me, When you get though to the high school level, it becomes even more important in a lot of ways, because then you deal with issues where it could be an issue of sexual health, it could be an issue of violence that someone is experiencing, and having that trust and knowing that school nurse at that stage is even more important to me. So I think that's something the cluster model takes away. I just wanted to flag that for members because it wasn't in the original draft. And then I think the only other thing that we've added to this is we're trying to be proactive on the legislation. And normally when we do legislation, we kind of come back and do it later, but I wanted to make sure we had those appendices circulated ahead of time. So what I added down here, those are, I think, all technical revisions, like changing DC public to DCPS, stuff like that. But the last one is where I attach the actual appendices. So if we can go to Appendix A, I'll go through these. So Appendix A is just so this is a sample submission memo to council. I don't know that we need to vote on these, but I think it's better for members to have more information before them than less. So this is how, when we submit a bill to council, this would have to be circulated with it. It's the same way the attorney general submits legislation, the same way the mayor submits legislation, same way CFO would submit legislation. So it'd be something like this. Obviously, the yellow is pending what would be the result of the vote. But this would be the first of the bills here. So and I actually wrote the bill. So we have the bill up here in Appendix B. And I think just as a matter of policy, when we vote on the resolution, we should be able to vote on the bill too. So members shouldn't just be voting on the concept, they should be voting on the actual language of the bill, because I think that's where the devil's in the details. So if we can go to Appendix B, I want to explain what the legislation does and then, work with members over the next 2 weeks to fine tune this like we've done the resolution. So here's the draft. So what this does is really three very important things, I think. First thing is this mandates the 40-hour per week school nurse coverage. Now, why is 40 important? I know there's a bill that's been introduced by another council member for 30. But we heard testimony from the public witnesses about the problems where, the day ends, aftercare begins, or after school activities begin, and then there's just no nurse. They're gone because they were only there for 20 or 30 hours. So what this would have, by having a 40-hour per week nurse, you're going to be able to cover the bulk of the either the before care opportunities or the aftercare opportunities for the schools with 40 hours, because that adds 2 additional hours, obviously, per day. So I think that that's really important to have. So we go up to 40 here. Now we have to phase it in though. Realistically, there's no way we can require this within next year, say suddenly we're going to have full nursing coverage. That's not going to be realistic. So we phase this in over a 4-year period of time over the next 4 fiscal years. And it's pretty, can I move it up with it there? How can I? Well, control the flow. So here, So you see here from that fiscal year 26 to 29, those are the 4 years where we would then strive to add on a phased-in basis, more actual registered and LPN nurse capacity. Now, going back, if we could go up just a little further. So right here, I think here's what's important here, as we look at H1, is we need to get information from DC Health. So the challenge we have right now is we don't even really know what we need or how to get there. And we need to find out from them what amounts need to be added to the school health services program for children's to be able to attract and retain nurses. So what this request here is by December 20th of 2024, that we get from DC Health the following information. The number of school nurses that would actually need to be added each of the next 4 years to get from where we are right now to a universal model where every DC public and public charter school have a full-time 40-hour-a-week nurse. Then the estimated funds that it would take to get there. And this is two things. One, it's increasing the funding for our school health contract so that we have the funds needed to offer competitive salary with the region, and they would be best placed to tell us that. And then obviously pay for the additional staffing that we would have. If we could go up just to see on this, there's a couple other things. I'm sorry, go like up, I mean. Go on. That's going the other way, Chris.
Down.
Yeah, you're going.
Okay.
We got, you're on 3 minutes to scroll up to go down.
To go down. Sorry. So here,
Section.
and I'm going to, yeah, we're going to, I'm sorry, subparagraph C here.
Thank you.
There we go.
Very, very.
Perfect. There we go. All right, so the estimated utilization of the program we're gonna discuss in a second, school nurse recruitment and retention loan repayment. And then to get an idea of where the current school nurse staffing assignments are, I think having an idea of where nurses are floating from school to school would be very telling in terms of, what we need to be able to get to a level where everyone's gonna be happy. Now, what I try to do here with this language is to say, this shouldn't be viewed as costing a lot of additional resources. One of the games agencies will try to sometimes play when they don't want to do something, it could be, they don't want to do this, will be to attach a fiscal impact, because then it pushes it a whole nother year then, and we have to wait to get the type of information we need to be able to make a push on this if we want to try to get covered. So this basically emphasizes this plan shouldn't cost additional resources. We're looking for basically an analysis to show us what we need in terms of additional funding to get to universal nursing. If we could go now to the last title. Title 2 here is a loan repayment program. And this is what I really wanted member feedback on, particularly because what we set up here is it's very similar to a loan repayment program for underserved areas of the city. So this is designed to be similar to that, but that's based on geography, focusing a lot on Ward 7 and 8, where this is an underserved profession, where we don't have right now the type of coverage we need in our schools. So what we try to do here is to offer, if we could scroll up to go down. Always further.
Correct.
Okay, I'll pause, please. So what this does is it allows people to apply to join the program. So if you're a school nurse, you can apply to say, I would like loan forgiveness. The program offers up to $10,000 per year of loan forgiveness for every school nurse that applies. I wanted to see whether people thought that was the right amount. I looked up what the average LPN loans are. It's about $147,000 to be an LPN. RN would be probably slightly more than that. That's both the undergraduate and graduate degree combined to become LPN. So what the objective here would be with 10,000 a year is within about 15 years to allow somebody, if they stick with our school system for 15 years, to get their loans fully repaid on average. Now we do give up to $200,000 of abatement for those that might be outside of that market. So somebody who went to private school and then did their nursing degree after that, they may be a little higher on that. But do people think that's the right price point though? And I'm interested to kind of hear on that. I know we try to base it on the averages, but is 10,000 a year enough to attract and retain nurses? Or do we need to go higher with that number?
I would recommend we do market research. to look at like, what is the cost? Also be mindful, I'm not a health person, but I don't know if the LPN would be attracted to a job within a school. So you might need to be looking at the true RN, because licensed nurse practitioner, you're basically almost a doctor minus a few procedures that you can't do. Also, my day job, we do not loan forgiveness. We do personnel preparation grants where we give you X amount of dollars for your years of service. So if you take with every year of funding that you take, you have to do a service obligation of like 2 years. So you also can look at that model of, if you, because 15 years is a strong commitment for someone new in the profession, younger in DC. And you pretty much have to know if DC is the only place you want to be. But maybe thinking about like, if you take a couple of years, then, multiply that by 2, you get, but basically do a model of, if you take 1 year funding, you have to give X years of your time commitment. And something we also learned from that programming is you might want to be very specific about schools or education environments. And sometimes people take our grant money and then they go outside of education and use their credentials. So that's my feedback in regards to the amount.
So on a couple of things that we do to try to protect for that, because I was worried about people just leaving us. So we don't pay people in advance. So they've got to complete the school year and then they get paid after that. So we wouldn't prepay on anybody, because that is an issue where with the other program where people have left.
I just need to see if you're implementing use of technology.
For 1 year?
So it's for each year. So let's say you apply for the program.
Okay.
And you're approved for the program.
Yep.
You would then be able to, they would say, you're eligible, you'll get up to, let's say, $10,000, you'll get $10,000 by June 30th, after the school year is finished. What you would have to then do is use that for eligible expenses and document that you've used it for eligible expenses. Now, that could be that you paid student loans throughout the year and you documented that, and then the funds would just go to you. You could also take that money that you get, that $10,000, and use it to pay down your student loan debt. That would also be an eligible expense. But we define eligible expenses. They're basically anything used for loans that you use to get your degree, whether it be undergrad or a graduate degree in nursing. And then if you're taking continuing education, so if you're getting a degree at that time, what it would be is you could like potentially deduct like books and other expenses like that. I mean, it's gonna be a relatively small component of it, but it could be included as well. The one thing I would say, Representative Reed, I think you said, I think the RNs are above the LPNs. I think the LPNs, yeah, I think the RNs are more like the docs and the LPNs are the lower. And if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, whatever it is, I'm not sure, but I do know one of them. I'm just making sure that whoever we attract is actually attracted to, like, that would make sense for them to get repaid. They want to actually do. What's the pathway to being a school nurse? I guess is a bigger question. This also lends me to thinking like maybe for a process, we should tease out this bill from the resolution, because I think this is a lot of stuff that I think we need a little more just feedback. I think we should, at least with the resolution, acknowledge that we want to do a bill and then immediately get to work on some of these aspects. I mean, I get why you're packaging this, but it's so, we're asking a lot. Not saying that should stop us, but I think we just need a little more time to look through this in a meaningful way. So that's just also my recommendation process wise of not lumping some of all these documents so that we can at least get a resolution that the state board passes. Because my worry is we get hung up on the appendices, but the heart of it that we agree on, there should be some action legislatively.
I mean, on that one, I would rather, if it's amenable to members, wait another month on doing a resolution, because I think another resolution by this board, we've already spoken out in need of full-time school nursing, in previous iterations of this board. I think if we don't have some like teeth attached to it, it should be an actual bill or something like that.
But we don't do bills, do we?
We can introduce bills, we can, and we haven't done that,
Yeah.
but we need to start doing that. I think that's one of the powers this board needs to do more.
I agree with what Representative Reed is talking about as far as
We should do a bill.
the size of it. The size of it is really daunting. And if we, because I think we can convince this council that this is a very valid, valuable, needed kind of a resolution that needs to be passed, but I think I got lost on the last 8 pages.
Well, what I would move to do then is to wait a month, because like this resolution by itself, I don't think does anything. I mean, I would love to have two weeks to talk to members individually to see if they've got questions and work the appendices through. But I think just another resolution saying we support full-time nurses without taking some real definitive steps to try to get there.
But I think the resolution says that we are going to introduce a bill and we agree on that, that does get it. And then following the action of actually looking through the bill in a meaningful way is kind of my counterpoint to that. I think we can do a resolution with T saying that we're going to do a legislative action. Because we don't agree we want to do a legislative action. Has that been a vote at this time?
Well, I will. So no, that has been voted,
Okay.
but also I was gonna think that when we want vote on new bylaws, there's a process for legislation built into that. We can go vote, yes,
Right.
which there is a clearly outlined process for resolutions and whatnot. And so
Before we move to the tactical of the procedure for implementing a bill, Representative Goulet, I think you touched on this, but would you remind me what the difference is between what we would submit and the 2017 law about that already has this requirement of a minimum of 40 hours full-time nurse in every school?
That legislation is now repealed. It got repealed due to council inaction.
Got it.
They didn't accept to add funding to it. It's no longer in DC code anymore. So that resurrects it, but it adds 2 things. This loan repayment program. I think that's going to be critical. It's another key tool in terms of trying to make this a stronger incentive for our nurses. So, I mean, if we want to do a 2-step on this, we could do the resolution and then come back, go through Representative Williams' committee and, vet the bill in committee if that would work. I mean, I've also got an emergency version of the second piece of the bill. So if that would be the preference of members, we could do 2 resolutions on this, one supporting it. I just feel it's stronger if it's packaged together, to be honest.
And regarding the number, right, it seems like, and I've talked to nurses that say that they make as little as half as much by working in a school versus in a hospital, which I don't know if the 10K will be enough to draw that and replace that. Certainly if it's also even harder to work from a school, but I get where you're going with it, and I do think that every bit that we can add certainly will help. The piece that I want to be sure we're thinking through chronologically is how we get the funding. If the 2017 bill was repealed because there was not enough funding to actually keep the nurses in the schools and we weren't willing to fund it, how do we actually make that piece come through to make the legislation implementable? But one piece, Representative Goulet, that really stood out to me from the testimony we heard from Elizabeth McDermott when we hosted the panel was her question, two questions she asked. One, why the credentials being required of school nurses is so is not as strict as she wanted it to be. And so I wondered, again, this is not something that I know a tremendous amount about in terms of the various levels of credentialing, but I wonder if we could at least add the word certified in the resolution to make sure that we're emphasizing quality and not just quantity. And then she asked another one, which I would like everyone to be thinking about, although I don't have an actionable step here for the resolution or for what you've prepared, which we should have started with this, Eric. It's great. Thank you. Is why we're using an agency to hire nurses instead of hiring it directly the way that most school districts are. And what at least from what I've been trying to find, it's been quite vague and not as transparent as I would hope as to how the group, which is Children's School Services, won the bid, and what their performance has been.
But I can respond to both. Okay. So I think on the first point, I do think we get to that. I think her concern specifically was we have a lot of these allied health professionals or health techs that are right now in there who have almost really minimal credentials, you know, and are unable to provide many of the services that parents and students want a school nurse to be able to provide. So I think a lot of the credentialing issues are because we have professionals who aren't nurses serving in these roles. I mean, I think any LPN under any guidance of an RN should be able to provide, hopefully any services that we would traditionally expect. I mean, on the issue of children's managing the contract, I think that probably, I mean, it could be looked at whether we should be hiring directly through DC Health. I'm not sure DCPS would be the right place to hire, and I'd be very concerned if we left this to individual principals to hire nurses. So I think having children's manage it through a contract still makes sense, but I think the issue really is that the contract that you mentioned, Representative Chang, is severely underfunded. So like the 10,000 isn't where the increase comes in. That's on top of what should be a big pay increase that these nurses get through the contract. So what we need to do to attract school nurses is increase the total amount of the children's contract. So then we can pay our nurses a level of pay that will frankly attract and keep them in our schools. So, yeah, I'm glad to go with whoever's want on this. If you want to do a separate resolution, you know, I'm glad to work with Representative Williams through his committee to vet the legislation. If we want to attach it to this resolution, that works for me as well.
You know, you have the most experience with DC budgets, I think, of all of us. So mainly my concern, which it sounds like is not a concern that you share, which is great, is that we ask for something that doesn't actually is not practically implementable without something else happening first. But it sounds like that concern you think is not won't be in the way of actually implementing this.
I don't want to give you false hope on that. I think there is a big hurdle. I mean, the big hurdle is that there has not been a prioritization of this funding. I mean, that's how we've gotten where we are. So I think the reason we try to get ahead of it, the budget process, is if we want to try to get this done and reverse this trend we're seeing, we need to push hard in this budget process to make this a priority, because right now it's not. I mean, it's a priority for our students, for our parents, but it's not, I haven't seen this really bubble up as a budget priority down to Wilson. And that's, so that's the effort to try to move quickly here on this and try to see, you know, within the next couple of weeks, we can get people comfortable with them. And I'm glad to have individual conversations. I'm glad to, you know, circulate, I think all of this is in SharePoint, all the appendices. But if we have a bill that gets sent to council, we would need emergency action really to be able to get this info from DC Health. If you go by January and we don't even know what we need in terms of school nurses, that's not going to make the next year's budget. So you're going to go a whole other year of losing nurses and not paying nurses at the same wage.
Right.
So
right.
You know, I'm flexible on it, but I want to do what the body wants.
Last comment.
Yeah,
Thank
a couple more points. One related to the resolution. I raised, the last time we discussed this, issues within the contracts that, I believe certain services, the nurses can't provide possibly. And so we have people in the buildings who can't render all the services. So can we add language to the resolution related to, reviewing, components of the contracts, that maybe.
Yes,
Yeah, because
you did raise that, so I'd be glad to work with you to get that language added.
yeah, and then the second piece is, I know you mentioned the 40 hours in Representative, you mentioned the need for before and after care. So have we considered, like, how does this get to that issue? If we're saying 40 hours a week, it sounds like you might need two different people. So just, any considerations for that, and it might not be a right now question.
You should be able to cover most of before and after care with a 40-hour-a-week nurse. I think the issue right now is we have nurses that are below 40 hours. So, as soon as the bell rings, it may be 3 o'clock, you got kids leaving and aftercare beginning, and the nurse leaves, with everybody else, and then there's nobody there for, a period of time, kids may be letting off more energy and even more likely to get injured or something like that, or need a nurse. So, I think we can cover most of that. I don't know if it'll be perfect. I don't think.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect. I just wondered that it's considered, and, this is not a personal anything. But as the board, we're related to ethics. So I just want to make sure, are we covered? Because I know you leave this work, I know you have deep roots in relation to DC Health Council Committee work. So I just want to make sure that we are covering ourselves as an agency in regards to like who is leading the advocacy, who's writing some of this stuff. So that we come across the impartial body. And I always, when I always raise my ethical flag, it's not a jab at anyone, but I did have like a little kind of pause, given to some of the connections with the health industry. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, I mean.
But I appreciate the heart of the bill.
Of course, yeah, and I'm glad to, answer that. I'm glad we've always got to focus on ethics and make sure there's no conflicts here. I mean, my day job is obviously working at United Medical Center. This wouldn't impact that at all. If anything, it might make it harder for us to retain nurses if PC is doing a better job, but it wouldn't impact any of the work I do, during my 9 to 5. So I think we're covered in that regard. I don't see any conflicts, related to council on this. I think we want to hopefully urge action by DC Council on this. We can't, unfortunately, take action ourselves. I will say one thing that's interesting is actually in the code right now, and I know it's probably a mistake and they just missed it, is it still has us as responsible for implementing this program.
Oh, wow.
So the State Board of Education is still the body in DC
That
code
was a question that I had earlier.
that's supposed to do this work. Now, I think that was a remnant of the old State Board of Education and they just haven't repealed it yet. But right now we're tasked technically with.
We should add it to our resolution.
Or you could just send it to me, and you will take a look at it.
Yes.
That's one step.
I appreciate your research,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna try to move us along because we have a number of people that are in the queue.
Yeah.
Representative Barnes, and then Representative Myers, and then we have our president that's also in the queue that has had her hand raised for quite some time. So Representative Barnes.
All right, so the two things, a solution that I thought, I don't know if it was thought of, probably kind of, but I was thinking possibly either us hiring teachers who could play the role of a nurse, or train, as we get new teachers involved, we can also like train them in ways that they're able to fulfill some type of duty when they're maybe nurse. Because as he stated, we have them, they leave exactly at 3:30. And you don't have anybody where to go to, and possibly one of the teachers, they could possibly be there for your, your needs. So that was a thought. And then number two is kind of off topic a little, but can we make sure these nurses are kind of nice?
Red Lives Matter is important.
Some of these nurses, it's not really, it's like, okay, I just hurt my leg, oh, look at that. Like, you know what I'm saying? I want to go in there and feel like I'm at the doctor's office, taking care of me, something like that. But I do believe that like teacher nurse relationship, that could be something a little good.
I agree with that 100%.
Thank you. I guess the ICE thing was a universal experience, because that's something to me too. I'm just curious, Representative Boulay, if you've been in touch with the students who originally brought this issue to the board at all? Like,
We spoke over the summer and they reached out to me today. I wanted to discuss with members first to see where
Yeah.
we're at. But I think it was Brady was his first name. I would just text and emailing with him and said, as soon as, we were able to kind of get consensus on where we wanted to go with it here, then I'd be glad to reach out. And I wanted not just reach out to Brady and his group, but all the other public witnesses who came in to kind of get their feedback before we move to final vote. But I always like to kind of get consensus from the membership first before we, start, going wider on it. So that was the purpose of today's discussion. But yeah, I'm excited to work with you and certainly bring that group back in, because I think they did a great job advocating for this issue. Really fantastic work.
And now we'll go to Representative Thompson, who has had her hand up in the queue for quite some time online.
My thought was mostly about the about the money. I mean, I mentioned in my leadership report, we do have a meeting coming up with the chairman. And so I will raise just a couple questions about, like, typically we kind of flag for him what's coming down the pike. And then anything that we should be aware of as far as limitations, hesitations to introduction. Happy to ask the questions about the financial implications and if that matters at all. So I am listening along. I'm a little quieter than usual. My sister called and said that she and my dog were attacked by another dog. So I may be dropping off. I'm just trying to make sure they're okay. But the things that come out of this that are relevant, happy to put on the list of things for the meeting with the chairman.
Thank you so much. I'll entertain one final question.
Okay, yeah, please go make sure your sister and dog are okay. That is terrible. I hope they're doing fine. Two, okay. One, just like some various random suggestions. One, I know Brady Woodhouse was promoting the last, or a few months ago, he was promoting the compact nursing licensure thing. It's this thing where it's adopted by like Texas, Missouri, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, West Virginia, like so many states where you get a license in one state and it just applies to all the other states. And apparently that might help address Representative Chang's thing where will they be qualified? It seems apparently it's supported by like the Red Cross and like the USA Department of Commerce, which is like the most random thing, like not health and human services, but commerce. But it's so that could be useful. But that's but Brady's the one who wrote that bill, so he would know. So I'm so happy that he's involved. Second, maybe notify parents and students when the nurse isn't there, so like the parents and students know, hey, I can't just like reabandon. Like I feel like that's something they would want to know. Also, it would raise public awareness about this issue, which may put more like focus on this in order to press it forward if you want to. Third, my school actually doesn't have any nurses, and because it's so small, my graduating class is 47, and we make do because when someone falls down the stairs, we have our effectively our deans, our principal, just pushes them out in a wheelchair. It's terrible. Yeah, we have I literally see the teachers pushing this kid around in a wheelchair. It's so bad. But anyways, it's because we're so small. I'm laughing because it's a stress response. You might not. I don't think don't worry. We have psychologists. They know what's wrong with us. We have a psychologist and we have a counselor. They know that it's not the physical health, it's the mental health. But anyways, so again, we might want to prioritize funding if funding is an issue away from smaller schools like mine and towards schools like Jackson has thousands of kids. It's crazy. My school has only less than 500, less than 300 high schoolers. Finally, is that all? Yeah, that's all. I also have just this really, really small question. Why December 20th, why December 20th, 2024?
Yeah, so I've got that. I'll answer. I think you had that question, a couple other good points. So the goal was to try to get it for two reasons. One, if we push it all the way to December 31st, we could potentially need temporary legislation too. Emergency legislation is only good for 90 days. So I made sure that I made it within that window that they would have to submit it. Also, then it gets it in before, if people leave for the holiday break. So I think what my goal was with that is make sure we have it before the holiday break, before the emergency bill would expire. And then we wouldn't have a situation where we were going into January without the type of information we need if we really want to make an advocacy push on this. Because to your point, it's gonna be about, I think, and to Representative Chang's point and Representative Thompson's, it's about 15 to 20 million a year to do this. And this is not cheap. It's something that we're either going to pay for it, or I think to the point Representative O'Leary paid, we may pay the other way, where a student dies or gets hurt and we didn't have coverage, and then we have to pay through a lawsuit. And that's what really worries me with this, is that I think I'm not trying to have a cringeworthy reaction to your school there, but that's concerning that if there's a student who has a health issue, there's not somebody there. And I think that's what we want to try to avoid, because it makes me very nervous, and I'm not usually a nervous person, but I think not having a medical professional on site for each of these schools is definitely not the way we should be going. And I think we can really make a strong stance as a state board on an issue that's important to a lot of parents. I know this is huge in Ward 3, parents want a full-time nurse on site, for both emergencies, but then also just, traditional medical issues that come up day to day.
Thank you for the lively discussions. I'm gonna end discussion right now, and Director Butler, you can tell us our next action.
Okay, there's been a lot of discussion about this. So the main thing is, are we moving this to the public meeting? The resolution to be voted on at the public meeting in September, or if you all are referring to December. That decision has to be made. Not, excuse me, October.
Okay.
I just said,
Move back. Okay.
yeah, didn't mean to do that, but from.
I believe you.
Last I heard you
Oh,
mention,
to do that.
so that we just want to be clear so that we know what actions to take.
Can you refresh, SOP related to the legislative piece? Like, are the steps in place already for legislation? He has a bill in the,
Yeah.
resolution, so I was just wondering, like, are we already in line with the current SOP steps?
Well, the SOP steps are to pass the resolution. If the resolution has dependencies, the board also votes on it. You guys vote to pass the whole thing.
Mhm.
You can transmit that to the county.
Yeah,
I mean, but it also can be transmitted separately. I just trying to figure out what you want to decide. Because either way, it also still has to go to the student advisory committee. And right, FYI, we might be at 90 kids.
I'll be seeing them Monday, right? One way.
Hopefully. But the point is that this resolution, if it includes all the appendices or not, it still has to go through the SAC, be presented to them. So if it is pushed to October and whatever reason, the current resolution is pushed to October, it may be great to give students more time or not. But I think we'll just have to make a decision on what you want to do, whether you want to keep it on the September public meeting agenda, or if you want to shift it to October.
I believe you were saying that you may want to push it to October. Could you
No,
say that?
I mean, my preference would be to see what we can get done in the next 2 weeks to get people comfortable with the appendices. I mean, I think there's general consensus on the resolution. My concern of waiting on this is DC Health has not wanted to cooperate with this. They don't want to do this, and they haven't wanted to do this for a long time. But no, they fought, I mean, I'm talking in school nursing every step of the way. They
Okay.
want their cluster model, they want to use health techs. They don't want to have nurses mandated. I mean, that's been their position for the last 8 years.
I'm also curious, I know President Thompson mentioned that there would be a meeting with the chairman, so I'm also wondering which play would be better in regards to going to the chairman. I don't know, I'm not sure that.
Yeah.
So but it don't help, be helpful to go to the chairman and say, we passed resolution just saying they're gonna be the legislative coming from out of us. Or would it be helpful to go with like a full packet? I'm just throwing that into the ring. I'm not married to either. I really though would prefer time to like really tease out a lot of these components. A bit, particularly with like this, the finance, et cetera. Usually I'm very, progressive, but I kind of like, I give it a little pause. I want this to be, I love the heart of it. But I also don't want like certain technicalities or something in it to be, I mean, I guess it also doesn't need to be perfect, but, I just want to give some little thought to this one.
And to your point, Dr. Reed, the president has her hand up, so I want to acknowledge her. President Thompson.
Yeah, I mentioned the chairman. So just in general, I think this is a personal best practice. I don't like to surprise people with stuff. And so more so as a, hey, FYI, anytime there is something that could go to council or could implicate council, we tend to share it, right? And we tend to discuss like the best path forward. For example, when we passed the resolution with the seizure safe schools, that was not a surprise that was coming to council. It's not really about asking for permission. It more so it's like hey, this is something we are considering. It would be helpful to know now if there are any concerns or limitations, right? And so we do not have, to my knowledge, anything laid out in the SOPs that is specific to introducing legislation. In general, we do have to have a member that agrees to introduce it. And when it came to the data warehouse bill in particular, that member, a lot of times has been, that member was the chairman. And so he probably would also just be the most ideal vehicle for this. That also does not mean, though, that whatever we introduce is what the council will approve. Because just like if someone brought something to this body, members can weigh in, he can refer it to committee, it can go through processes, all the different things. So I do think our goal would be to put forth something that, of course, is thoughtful and substantive. I would agree the goal is not perfection, but I think I'm just looking to raise that as a opportunity for any feedback as far as things we haven't considered. I think my preference would be that we go ahead and put it on the agenda for September, at least the resolution. If we do not transmit the legislation to council at that point, that's fine, because we can transmit the legislation to council thereafter. But we can, barring that, the student advisory committee has time to consider the resolution. My preference is we would put it on the agenda for a vote in September, which would then allow us either to transmit legislation later or maybe everything's ready in September, right? That would be great. If not, we can always remove it and delay it until October, which is fine too, but at least we'll give ourselves the option. I heard my name, but I couldn't hear what was stated. So
He's giving me instructions on how to call the vote for this, so
Oh, okay.
Preparing a motion.
So is there a motion to put it on the September agenda?
What is it?
The resolution advocating for.
I move.
Support DC schools. It was moved by Representative Boulay, seconded by President Thompson.
But we are there, so now I call the roll. Voice. Call for voice vote. All ayes. Any nays? Abstentions? Pass.
Great, we will put it on the agenda for the September public meeting. Mr. Boulay will have all materials by tomorrow to Darren to share with these student members who will be prepared to add it to the agenda at the SAC meeting on Monday.
Thank you so much for the lively discussion and for the next action. We're going to move to President Thompson, who's going to be talking about the SR 24-19, reappointing Daniel Davis as the Chief Student Advocate. President Thompson.
Oh, okay. So the admin committee has made the recommendation that we move forward with reappointing Dan Davis. It would be, the terms are 5-year terms. You all should have the resolution in front of you. I think we're all familiar with Dan as the Chief Student Advocate. He also is interested in continuing his service, so this is not at all a surprise to him. We have had that conversation in the admin committee. I am accepting that recommendation and would like to put it before the board. Are there any questions?
Seeing no questions.
All right. Well, I look forward to this being on our September agenda. And then, of course, not only thanking, but congratulating Dan on his reappointment.
The next item on the agenda for new business is also President Thompson, appointing student rep to the ad hoc committee. But I can take that if you like.
Yes, if you would take that, I would be grateful.
SR 24-20. So for the first time ever, we held a student representative orientation in August. And we asked the members and we showed them about the standing committees of the board, and they have selected which committees they would like to serve on. So there's a resolution here just appointing them to those various ad hoc committees. college career and life readiness, um, Representative Ryan King, educator excellence, Nathan Lynn, student experience and engagement, Anna Mayor, and Khalif Barnes. So, the resolution is drafted, and it will be on the September agenda. I'll turn it back over to Vice President Patterson. We are on extending the education and civil rights.
Thank you so much. I apologize. I had to take a file break. For SR 24-1, extending the civil rights working group, I just want to make sure that we have the correct time. We have been working, but we have missed some meetings, so I'm asking for an extension. It did have a sunset date that would end after, I believe, at the end of this month. Is that correct? So we're asking for another month, basically, yes. To do the work. I'm seeing a face.
No, I just read it. Somebody, it's 3 months.
But-
3 months to November.
Through November, okay.
Vice President Patterson, we can also discuss the timing and with the committee working group members, if they have a preference. We have 2 weeks to finalize the resolution. So I just put that time in there.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Hopefully we won't need that long, that we can. I know a lot of people, the team members have been very busy. So I do understand that for us to follow up on this, so we're asking for a little bit more time with, we'll say no later than November 30th, prior to hope that we would have to go longer than October, so I'm hoping for, and that we can present this, soon, our suggestions and recommendations within the next month or so. So that is the resolution, the extent of it. Any questions? Thank you. Now we'll go back to President Thompson for honoring the late Mary Lacey.
Yeah, I was gonna say my recommendation, which you already know, Vice President Patterson, is to give yourself the breathing room, because if you don't need it, you don't need it, but that way you don't have to come back and ask for another extension. As far as the resolution on the committee, for the ceremonial resolution for Mary Levy, members, you all are well aware,
So
of
there's
the,
a ceremonial resolution 24-7, honoring the late Mary Levy. Please
am I
take a
not
look at it.
talking? Oh,
We cut out, we couldn't hear you at all.
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can't. We couldn't
Oh,
hear you
okay,
at all.
sorry.
So we took over. Sorry about that.
I was like, am I talking? Oh, okay, sorry. I was going to say, members, you all are well aware of the work, not just that Mary Levy has done with the board, but just of the work she's done in the education landscape, actually for decades now. We would like to pass a ceremonial resolution, which has already, initial draft is should be in front of you, to honor not just her time with us, but her legacy. Would love any additions or feedback to this resolution. We have also made the family aware that we will be hopefully passing this resolution with the understanding that I don't believe there's a date yet for the memorial service, but as we have done previously, those resolutions have been shared in time for those to be presented at any services that the family holds.
Thank you, President Thompson. Is there any discussion?
So family involved.
Yes, ma'am.
Definitely in support of the resolution. I guess for and during the time of the public meeting, we can have a moment of silence around the time that we do the resolution to kind of seal the moment. That's my recommendation.
Thank you so much, Reed. Any other discussions or comments? All right.
Just a reminder that I would love to see all of you tomorrow evening, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Anytime you can join at the MLK Library to meet with kindergarten teachers. And
I guess it's final comments on just this resolution.
Yes. But we will come back to that and allow you to give that public announcement, I think, and sorry. But yeah.
Sorry, misunderstood.
Thank you so much. I'm going to come back to, President Thompson, on CR 24-8, congratulating, May Best on her retirement. She's a person who's very dear to me, but I know she, is retiring from an entity within Ward 7, so I want to allow, President Thompson to speak on it.
Or I can think of another person who I think would have us,
Yes, she does share.
who might have us both be as
another
far as like who
representative
she is dearest to. But May Best is retiring from East River Family Strengthening Collaborative. They will be having a retirement celebration for her in October. And so we want to make sure that we honor her years of service, not just to Ward 7, but also to Ward 8, because East River also has a hand in the Far Southeast Strengthening Collaborative. Ms. Best has actually partnered on a couple of different events that members have been able to participate in as well. And you know, she's just another person in our community who very much cares about youth and the quality of education, and has been of service and deserves to be honored. And so I'm happy to put this forth as the Ward 7 representative, of course, with the blessings of our Ward 6 representative, Brandon Best.
At this time, I'll go to Representative Best and see if he has any other comments on this person.
Yeah. I get to get a couple, right? Yeah, so she's retiring after after serving 26 years as the executive director at East River Family Strengthening Collaborative. She was the longest serving executive director for the collaboratives, which are basically CBOs, with the goal of improving the outcomes for family and children in our communities. In her role, she worked to ensure that thousands of families had food and housing security, job training, parental support, parental classes, but also she created programs to support schools in Ward 7, mainly their truancy programming. And so just really been doing a lot of work, and I'm really excited to, put this up for you.
And thank you, Representative Best. I'll close the discussion comments with saying that she predates me actually knowing Representative Best. When I first arrived in the District of Columbia as a single father, she was one of the most instrumental people to help me learn my way around, being supportive, being a safety net for a single father east of the river, being a mentor to me as a community activist, and making sure that I truly understand how you advocate for a community. So I think there's no better way that we can honor her by doing this resolution. I just look forward to supporting.
All right. Deputy Director Bill will be in contact with the right.
All right, with that, we have one more. That was an addition. It was going to Representative Williams on
State
or
authority.
Authority, not government, but authority.
Yeah.
Here we go. Okay.
Exactly. So the concept, I've been in touch with, the Chairman Mendelsohn's staff, talking about some of the things that have been coming out of our committee with regards to retention, absenteeism. And then one of the things that kind of came up also was the authority of the state board and how we go about handling those things. I know our committee has been talking about like what our lane is in this broader absenteeism conversation. And, I was able to actually talk with him directly, and he mentioned that he would be open to holding a hearing if we put forth some modest incremental reforms with regards to following up on our previous governance report. He didn't want it to be framed as governance, and this is nothing as big as mayoral control. But the specific things were around, similar to what you had said, mentioned, Representative Goulet, like using our authority to introduce legislation, and doing so to say, to support our authority to obtain data from other education agencies, to advance and gain great weight so that we can ask for information, and then also to initiate policy on anything that is within our authority. So none of the kind of like opening and closing schools or any of the other things that were in the previous report. But on those three things, he said that he would be willing to hold a hearing, so I think we should take advantage of that and wanted to solicit support from the broader board.
And I would like to, have President Thompson chime in because I know she chaired, the committee and I know we had put forth, some recommendations, on that, that speak to specifically what you're talking about. President Thompson, could you kind of chime in and what your thoughts are?
Well, yeah, I mean, I know that, I think we shared, when we last met with Chairman Mendelson, that he, shared with us the topics that he was most likely, to introduce, in the fall. So he's, set the hearing schedule for the fall. We also, as part of the conversation around scheduling the council breakfast, this is one of the things that, would remain on that agenda that currently is scheduled for January. Happy to touch base with you, Representative Williams, and just make sure that we are on the same page and have like the same information. I have not experienced the chairman as like adverse to hearing some of the things. I will say that I don't know. I think our goal has been to get a full suite of things adopted, and I'm not quite sure. I think one of my questions is like which recommendations is he most interested in moving forward? Because that I don't feel is clear or confident around that yet.
Yeah, I'm happy to touch base with you on that. There were a couple in particular that he had mentioned.
And that's what I basically wanted to make sure that it was in line with the governor's report that and it was controversial because we got some letters regarding how they felt from different agencies about the recommendation that we put forth. I know I feel very strongly about some that was in that particular report as far as at the very least giving state board representative great weight on issues, no less than what our current ANCs carry with a lot of other agencies, government agencies when considering different legislation at the minimum. But it would be interesting to continue that conversation in the vein that we presented it in the report. And I'm all for it. I'm supportive of it.
So I would say, the main thing here, sort of particularly in next steps, because I meet with the leader and Bijan monthly separately from any meeting that the board has with Chairman Mendelson. And so they would be the ones that probably write any such legislation if it was. They wouldn't want to staff the hearing because they work for Chairman Mendelson. So if you have any write-up or debrief of that meeting so that we could all be on the same page. So that I can follow up with them, because they'll probably come to me in terms of planning and getting ready for any type of hearing that would occur. And then also because when we meet them at 9 a.m. in the morning, that this is something they want to discuss.
Morning.
Yes. I'm glad it was brought up now, because I had no idea that they were going to discuss it. They didn't mention it either.
Okay. Any other discussion on this issue? Thank you, Representative. I really appreciate that. I don't think we have anything else. I'm gonna go to the next page of my script that I have here. Alex, well, Alex, slow down. Representative Chang.
Hello.
You want to make that announcement again?
I would love to. Thank you.
I will be seeing you tomorrow, but go right ahead.
Hey, folks. Yeah, would love to see you if you're available to join tomorrow from 4 to 7. It looks like we are near capacity, and so we'll have a bunch of kindergarten instructors and literacy coaches there that I'd love for them to get the chance to meet as many of the SBOE members and student reps as they can, in addition to, of course, the agency literacy leads, so that we can really build out these relationships in a way that allows us to build cross-agency collaboration as we implement this, and make sure that we have teacher feedback, teacher buy-in as we move forward with our structured literacy reforms. Also have wine, food, a jazz band. It'll be on the rooftop of the MLK Library. Please, please, please do join us. And if there are any kindergarten instructors that you know personally and want to invite last minute, I know that we've closed the registration, but I think we will still have the capacity to add folks who show up, knowing that, you know, of the folks who RSVP, not everyone will come. And I want to thank Director Butler, Kathleen, Andrew, Sean, and the whole team for helping to put this thing together. It's been a massive lift of work to, as you know, make sure that we're not only planning a good event, but also collaborating across agencies, even in this one event, is not always the easiest. And I think it's worth it to put in all the work and make sure that we're doing this all together. So thank you, and hope to see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Representative Chang. I want to commend you because I think this, since I've been on the state board of education, this was a few times where I've seen an advertisement that goes across both sectors, and everybody is together on this and working across sectors. So I truly appreciate the work and the efforts that's gone into building the relationships that need to be there. Because we're looking out on behalf of all of our children, regardless of what sector and what part of the city that they live in. So I want to commend you, Representative Chang, on that. And with that being said, I want to make sure, in closing, I'll say thank you to the members for your time and engagement tonight. We will next convene at our public meeting in 2 weeks on September 18th. Our public meetings will now be held in a hybrid posture. Public witnesses will now have the option to provide testimony in person or virtually. So I appreciate that availability. All public witnesses must submit a written copy of their testimony to our staff for public record. Members of the public can visit SBOE.dc.gov to learn how to submit and present testimony. Seeing no further business before the state board, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn, and I would hope it would come from one of our student representatives as a group here. So anyone entertain a motion from?
Right, Representative Chang.
Thank you so much. Can I get a second?
Second.
There you go. It's been seconded by Representative Paul. Okay, so we are now adjourned. Thank you.
So the language.
Good night, everyone.
Actually, that we have to be.
Okay, we're good. We're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can say that.